The Secretary of War, the Joint Chiefs Chairman, and also the CENTCOM Commander, Admiral Brad Cooper, giving an update saying the United States should be prepared and will be prepared if combat operations resume.
Our troops are highly motivated, they're focused, they're vigilant, and they're ready. And they're using this time to do a couple of things. We're rearming. We're retooling and we're adjusting our tactics, techniques, and procedures. There's no military in the world that adjusts like we do.
U.S. commanders remain in close contact with their Israeli counterparts, who are also preparing for the possibility that negotiations fail.
Our American friends are constantly updating us on their contacts with Iran. Our goals and those of the United States are identical. We want to see the enriched material removed from Iran. We want to see the cancellation of enrichment capabilities within Iran. And of course, we want to see the opening of the straits.
Every piece of reporting from Trey Yinks, a reporter for Fox News, indicates that, well, looks like we are in for more war. There are signs of escalation, and it does indicate that as soon as the 2-week ceasefire is up, we will be engaging in another round of war against Iran. Now, I say that as President Donald Trump bluffs in public for the billionth time, making it appear as though he is optimistic about the peace negotiations that are happening between the United States and Iran. I'm personally not buying any of it, and neither are the Iranians. But before we hear from them, Cenk, your 2 cents.
Yeah, I want to be clear that of course Netanyahu is lying. No, we don't have the same goals. He wants 0% enrichment in Iran, which Iran has said they will literally never agree to. So that's just a recipe for permanent war if we go with the Israeli standards. Now later, I'm going to tell you why I think Israel agreed to this ceasefire in Lebanon, if it really is a ceasefire, but we'll explain why. And then Anna, I'm not as confident as you are. I want to have an interesting conversation with you at the end about whether we're headed towards more war or not.
Well, let me just begin by saying that it doesn't matter what the objectives of the United States government allegedly is. We didn't have objectives to begin with. Our objectives were given to us on a sheet of paper by the Israelis in a February 11th Situation Room meeting. And President Donald Trump, as Netanyahu's dog, will do as he's told. And that's exactly what's happening right now. There is no end to this war. If Israel wants to keep fighting, we will continue sacrificing our soldiers and using up our resources for their war. That is what's happening. That is my interpretation. So look, this week, the Pentagon sent 10,000 additional soldiers to join the 50,000 military personnel already in the Middle East. They also sent additional military assets to the Middle East. So there is a buildup happening right now during this ceasefire. Obviously, the Iranians see it, and they're not very hopeful that this is going to be a lasting ceasefire. So for me, it's obvious that the United States, didn't really negotiate in good faith during the ceasefire so far, and now they're continuing to rearm. I mean, you heard, you heard in that last video that we showed you, they're rearming as we speak, building more military assets. Now, why the hell would Iran agree to a ceasefire in the first place, knowing that the United States was going to use the ceasefire to rearm? Well, take a look.
Right now, the Iranians are rearming, they're preparing, but also, like before, but also every single day that goes by, the Strait of Hormuz is more or less closed. And that is putting more pressure on the United States under Trump. And the belief in Iran is that Trump does not make the decisions. It is the Israeli lobby, the Zionist lobby, and Netanyahu. And so the only way to force the United States to make a decision that benefits its own people is to increase the economic pressure so much that the United States under Trump or the leadership ultimately says, well, here we have to prioritize our own interests over that of Netanyahu.
So his argument is, well, we're also rearming, okay? We don't expect that we're suddenly gonna have peaceful negotiations that result in a real deal that the US abides by, honors and respects. But on top of that, even though the ceasefire is taking place, you still have the situation with the Strait of Hormuz. Now, it appears that the United States is actually now enforcing the double blockade of the Strait of Hormuz that Trump had announced earlier this week. And so in this next clip, you're gonna hear some more details about it, and then we'll get to what the Iranians are planning to do in response.
Joint Chiefs Chairman General Kane described the ongoing U.S. naval blockade, saying that 13 ships have made the wise choice to turn around and not test the blockade. At this point, no vessels have been boarded by U.S. forces as these ships adhere to American warnings.
So luckily, the U.S. hasn't attacked any ships. Luckily, U.S. military personnel hasn't gotten close enough to Iran where Iran has retaliated militarily during the ceasefire. However, ships are being turned back, meaning that Trump's blockade of the Strait of Hormuz has gone into effect, is being enforced, which doesn't really solve many problems. It's actually driving the global economy further and further, out of touch, basically closer and closer to a depression. And so, what are the Iranians going to do in response to this? Because they partially rely on the Strait of Hormuz to transport their own oil. Well, they have other options as well in terms of transporting their resources, but also in terms of retaliating against the US. Take a look.
Do you expect the Iranian government to respond with an escalation of their own by closing the Bab el-Mandeb Strait or other actions?
Oh, absolutely. That will happen as quite soon. And I think that basically what Trump is doing out of desperation is that he's dragging down the entire global economy because he is incapable of pursuing policies that are in the interest of the United States. Basically, it is Netanyahu who wants this war to continue, and the Zionist lobby. And since Trump is incapable, for whatever reason, I mean, there's speculation as to why, but for whatever reason, Trump is incapable of pursuing his interests. So what is happening is that Trump is dragging down the entire global economy, including the U.S. economy, because he is obedient to the Zionist lobby.
That's exactly right. I think that this whole incident really shows the unbelievable power, the claws the Zionist lobby has on our politicians. But Cenk, I am so curious to hear what your argument is against anything I just said. You think that there's possibility for peace here?
Yeah, so look, I'm torn on this one. So I get everything you're saying, all of that is true, except there's one thing that that gentleman I think got wrong. He said, is the strait's relatively closed, so that's applying more pressure to America. No, it's not, because in order for it to apply more pressure to America, both the oil markets and the stock market has to believe that the war is going to continue. And right now they do not believe that. They believe what Trump is saying 100%, and they believe the war is almost over. So since the stock market is up, there's no pressure at all here in America anymore.
I apologize. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just want to do my due diligence. That was Professor Morandi from the University of Tehran in the interview on Breaking Points. I just wanted to make sure I didn't do my due diligence earlier. Go ahead.
Look,
Cenk.
I don't know if Professor Morandi really speaks for the Iranian government or not, or I've seen him say things that are logical. I've seen him say things that are a little over the top. But like when the oil prices were shooting up and the markets were crashing, all the rich people in America were panicking. That was pressure. Right now, the markets are back to flying high, thinking, we already won the war. Trump said we won it. So there actually isn't that much pressure at all. So again, all of that goes to your point, Anna, of no, it looks like they're gonna keep going. But I have some sources that say that the Iranian government is actually think that they might get to an agreement soon, and maybe they're wrong. Maybe the source is wrong, and maybe the Iranian government is wrong. So it's hard to tell, but that was interesting. And then secondly, the US keeps acting like the war is almost over, and Trump knows that the markets crashing was not helpful to his cause at all. So if he now puts in ground troops or bombs them in the ways that he promised, it would be an enormous jolt to the markets. They would be shocked by it. And my guess is that the markets would then plummet. So, I mean, Trump has got to know that. So it would be really, it would be maniacal to continue in the war, especially when it looks like a deal is relatively close at hand. I mean, it's super easy to do. All you got to do is ignore Netanyahu's demands that they not have any enrichment at all, even for an energy program. So, and JD Vance, last thing, Anna, hold on.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hold on. Last thing is JD Vance is going around talking like the war is almost over. Again, it might all be head fakes, but Vance seems to realize how much damage the war has done to his political career. So if Trump continues the war and is just using this as a ha, I tricked you again and then I bombed you or put in ground troops, both Trump and Vance will have voluntarily walked off a political cliff for Israel.
Yep. I would bet money on it.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.